Just imagine for a second, building a life, you know, like the perfect life, a beautiful family, active in your church. The dad, he's got like a prestigious job.
Sounds picture perfect.
It was for the Colemans,
Mm-hmm.
at least back in 2009. But then on May 5th, that picture-perfect facade, it just shattered.
Shattered.
Yeah. Sheri Coleman and her two young sons, 11-year-old Garett and 9-year-old Gavin, were found murdered in their beds.
Oh, my God.
The crime scene, well, it was horrific. Not just the murders themselves, but the messages spray-painted on the walls. And the prime suspect,
A husband.
the seemingly devoted husband and father, Chris Coleman.
Wow. This case, I remember it just gripped the nation. It wasn't just, the brutality of the crime. It was the contrast, right? Between how perfect the Coleman family seemed and the darkness underneath.
Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. I mean, this is like ripped from the headlines. You have this seemingly perfect family, and then bam, their lives are violently ripped apart.
Exactly, and that's why this case is so fascinating and so disturbing, because it forces us to face this fact, right? That evil can hide in the most unexpected places, even in people we consider pillars of our communities.
So let's break down this family. Tell me about the Colemans. Who were they before this?
Okay, so Chris and Sheri Coleman, high school sweethearts. The kind of couple everyone thought they'll be together forever.
Oh.
Two beautiful sons, Garett and Gavin. They were very involved in their church. And Chris, he had this high-profile job.
What did he do?
Head of security for Joyce Meyer Ministries. Joyce Meyer, the televangelist.
Oh, yeah, I know her. So
Yeah.
that's not just any security job,
Yeah.
right? That's a position of trust.
Yeah.
He must have been someone people felt comfortable confiding in, like a protector.
Absolutely. And that's what makes the accusations against him all the more shocking. It's that betrayal of trust, the shattering of this, perfect image. That's why it caught everyone's attention.
Okay, so we had this picture, this seemingly perfect family, the respected head of security,
Mm-hmm.
and then the crime scene. Paint me a picture.
It was truly horrific. Sheri, Garett, and Gavin, they were all found strangled in their beds, and it gets worse. The killer, he spray-painted messages on the walls.
All kind of messages.
Things like, punished, and you have paid. It was deliberate, an attempt to send a message, to scare people, to mislead investigators maybe.
Those messages, it just sends chills down my spine. It feels personal, like a vendetta.
Yeah.
What were investigators thinking when they first saw this scene?
Well, imagine walking into that, the shock of a triple homicide, plus these messages, red flags everywhere. It points to premeditation, right? Someone wanting to control how the crime is seen.
And with a public figure like Chris involved, every detail would be scrutinized. The media must have been all over this.
Oh, absolutely. Intense pressure on investigators. They had to, separate fact from fiction, handle all that public scrutiny that comes with a huge case like this.
So we've got the picture of the perfect family, the horrific crime scene, and this high-pressure investigation. Where did investigators even begin?
They started with Chris Coleman. He's the one who called the police, said he found the bodies when he got home from the gym.
Seems like a natural starting point. But did anything about his story or how he acted seem off to investigators?
At first, there was sympathy for Chris. He was the grieving husband, the father who lost everything. But as investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies popped up in his story. Little things that didn't quite add up.
What kind of inconsistencies?
His demeanor, for one. He was surprisingly calm. Too calm, maybe, for someone who just found his family murdered. And then there were those threats he said the family had been receiving.
Right, the threats. Those seemed like a possible motive early on, didn't they?
They did. Chris said they were connected to his work with Joyce Meyer Ministries, maybe a disgruntled follower or someone targeting the organization. He presented himself as the worried husband and father, trying to protect his family from danger.
It almost sounds like he was trying to make himself the target, to shift suspicion.
Exactly. Clever but flawed. Investigators are trained to be skeptical, to look for cracks in the story. And in this case, those cracks appeared pretty quickly.
So what was the turning point? What really started to unravel Chris Coleman's story?
Remember those threats Chris said the family was getting? Well, as investigators looked into them, they found something shocking. The threats weren't from some outside source. They were being sent from...
His own computer.
You got it. Major turning point. Suddenly, the grieving husband, the protector, he became the prime suspect.
Whoa, what a twist. It's like something out of a movie.
It was a bombshell. The whole investigation shifted focus. Now, investigators had to figure out why. Why would a seemingly loving husband and father fake threats and then kill his own family?
That's a question I bet a lot of people were asking. And it's a question we'll explore more when we dive into Chris Coleman's motives in part 2 of our deep dive.
It gets even more intricate from here. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crime series. So last time, we left off with a pretty major twist. The threats that Chris claimed his family was receiving, well, they were coming from his computer.
That's right, from his own computer.
It changed everything. He went from grieving husband to, well, prime suspect. I can't even imagine the pressure the investigators were under at this point.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. The media was going crazy, the public wanted answers, and the stakes were, incredibly high. Investigators had to be so careful. They had to build a really strong case, a case that could hold up under all that scrutiny.
So, with Chris now the main focus, what did investigators do next? How did they start to figure out a motive?
Well, you know what they say, follow the money. And in this case, the money trail led them to a woman named Tara Lintz.
Tara Lintz. Wait, I think I remember that name. Wasn't she connected to the Coleman somehow?
She was. Tara was a close friend of Sheri's, like someone who had been in their home, someone they trusted. And as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a shocking truth. Chris and Tara were having an affair.
Wow. An affair with his wife's friend. That's a huge betrayal. Not just to Sheri, but to their friends, their community. Did Chris even try to deny it?
At first, yeah, he did. But the evidence was just, overwhelming. Investigators found emails, phone records, even hotel receipts. It all pointed to a pretty serious relationship. It became clear that Chris had been living this double life, presenting this image of a devoted husband and father while secretly carrying on this affair.
This is where it gets really interesting, right? The psychology of it all. What kind of person can do that? Was he, like, a sociopath? Completely lacking empathy?
That's a question psychologists and criminologists ask all the time. There's no easy answer. But in Chris's case, it seems like this need for control played a big part. He was a man who really liked order, structure, both in his personal life and at work. The thought of his world falling apart, of dealing with a divorce, maybe that was just too much for him to handle.
Okay, so the affair gives us a motive, a reason to want out of the marriage. But how does that connect to the murders? Was he worried Sheri would expose the affair, that it would hurt his job, his reputation?
That's definitely a possibility. Remember, Chris worked for a well-known religious organization, a scandal that could have been devastating for his career. And then there's the possibility that he just wanted a fresh start with Tara, without the marriage and financial burdens of a divorce.
Okay, so we've got the affair and these possible motives, fear, wanting a new life. But was there any hard evidence linking Chris to the crime scene itself?
There was, and it was this evidence that would seal his fate. Remember those creepy messages spray-painted on the walls? Forensic analysis showed that those messages.
Welcome back to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Crimes. We're digging deeper into the Chris Coleman family murders, trying to, make sense of this case that it makes you question everything you think you know about people.
It really does. It's these last pieces, that bring up the biggest questions. We think we know the what, the how, but the why, the real reason behind what Chris Coleman did, that's still a mystery in a way.
Yeah, we talked about the affair, his desire for this new life, the threat to his job, his reputation. Those are all pretty powerful motives, right? Like, what more could there be?
Well, think about the brutality of it all. His wife, his sons, strangled those messages on the walls. There's a level of rage there and planning that goes beyond just wanting to escape a marriage,
You're thinking there was something more, some deeper anger toward his family maybe. But wouldn't we have heard about that in the trial? From witnesses or evidence? Something.
Not necessarily. Trials, it's all about presenting a story, a version of events that helps the prosecution or the defense. There might be parts of Chris's personality, his relationships, that were never really explored.
God, that's a chilling thought. To think there might be more to this story, hidden motives, emotions that we'll never know about. Do you have any theories based on your experience with cases like this?
It's possible that Chris's need for control, it played a big role. He was a man who needed things to be orderly, structured. His job, being involved in the church, those positions gave him authority, Maybe the idea of losing control of a messy divorce, it was just unthinkable to him.
So the murders, it was his way of taking back control. A way to write his own ending, even if it meant killing his family.
It's disturbing, but it does fit with how much planning went into this. He didn't just snap, right? He staged the crime scene, made up those threats, created an alibi. It shows a mind that can shut off its emotions, separate itself from what it's doing.
So that's what's so scary about this case. It's not just the act itself. It's this glimpse into the darkness that people are capable of. This cold-blooded cruelty, even from someone who seemed like a good person.
And that's why cases like this stay with us, even years later. They make us question what we think we know about people, about human nature. It's a reminder that evil can hide anywhere.
So where does that leave us? Chris Coleman's in prison, still saying he's innocent. We may never know his true motive. What can we learn from all of this?
The Coleman case, it's a stark reminder, right? That what you see isn't always what you get. Even people we think we know can have dark secrets. It makes us question our own judgments, to look for the warning signs that often come before violence.
It also shows how important it is to get help, to build communities where people feel safe reaching out, when relationships are struggling, when life gets overwhelming.
Absolutely. Tragedies like this, they're heartbreaking. But they can also push us to do better, to raise awareness about domestic violence, to encourage open communication, to create support systems. It's about trying to prevent this from happening again.
It's a hopeful message, even in all this darkness. A reminder that even when something terrible happens, we can learn, grow, try to create a safer world.
And with that, we encourage you to keep thinking about this case. Learn more about human behavior, what leads to these horrible acts. Understanding is the first step to stopping them.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Chris Coleman family murders. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and as always, stay vigilant.